Hey friends, Dr. Jenny, and I am really excited to be here talking with you guys today. So anytime I first start talking to a person, whether they're already a client and we're just starting to dig into what's going on, or even just people sometimes who come up to me and they're like, hey, I've heard what you do, I want to ask you a question. Anytime I'm talking to, the vets that I work with, anytime I'm having a conversation about I'm feeling burned out, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling trapped, I don't want to be this way anymore. What is it that I can do to start getting where I want to be and getting my life to feel how I want to feel like? Of course, the first question we always ask is, well, what do you want your life to feel like? What do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing, right? Because we can't get anywhere we want to be if we don't at least have some vague idea of what that means. And that question in and of itself can trip people up, because it may be that we don't think it's possible. It may be that we're not willing to let ourselves admit to ourselves, even to ourselves, what we really want out of life, because, that's scary and dangerous, right? There's a million reasons why we have to focus on that. And even that step we might start to talk ourselves out of. If that's you, let me know, because we can help with that, but that's not what I'm talking about today. But once we start to get that vague idea about where we want to go, the other one is, what if I'm wrong? What if I want to change my mind later? What if I end up not liking that? We can always change our minds, right? We can always change our minds. But once we have this vague idea of where it is that we want to end up, then the question becomes, how do we start to get there? How do we actually start to move our lives in that direction? And the biggest mistake I say people make is we will start to really get clear on, I'm really excited about how I want these things to feel. For me, it was being able to be in my flip-flops and my yoga pants all day long, drink my cup of coffee, cuddle my kids in the morning. You have all heard the story if you've been following me long at all. All I wanted was to have my schedule on my own time and be able to wear my flip-flops all day, right? But we come up with this idea of where we want to go, and then we get sucked back into real life. And so a lot of times I'll have these conversations with people, and then a couple weeks later I'll be like, hey, how are things going? And they're like, yeah, I'm still in the same place. Everything's still the same. Like, life happened and I got sucked back into real life. It's a really familiar feeling, right? And it happened to me a lot too, because we think we know what we want. And so we become convinced that we have to take these big steps to make it happen. So that's why so many of us will job hop, right? We'll go from job to job to job to job. In my case, I ended up buying a clinic, and we make these big dramatic changes thinking that that is what we have to make, that's what we have to do to be able to get our life where we want to get it. And yeah, it's sometimes necessary. It's sometimes necessary. I mean, there are definitely times we have to get a new job or start a new business or do whatever we need to do. But what we miss when we do that is how important the day-to-day stuff is. And there's two different levels of the day-to-day stuff that we have to pay attention to. The baby steps are 20 times more important to getting where we want than the big picture. We have to have an idea of the big picture of where we want to go, but it's the baby steps that are important. And there's two different kinds. The first one is simply, are there daily actions that I can take that are moving me in the direction of my goal? And a lot of times those are not things that we think about. A lot of times, if I have this big goal for, let's say, starting a business, right? My goal I'm still doing this never really stops. But when I first started doing this, my big goal was to actually have my own online, AKA portable business. And so but I was still working in clinics at the time, right? I was still working 40 to 50 hours a week in a clinic, never mind the managerial, because I owned my own practice when I was starting this. And so I kept thinking like, do I need to find people to replace me? Do I need to sell the practice? Do I need to hire other associates? Blah, 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 all the big things, right? The thing that started making the biggest difference was the steps that I was taking every single day. And the biggest one was literally how I was starting my morning. So like the morning routine, starting my day out calm and peaceful and in a way that was very intentional for me, instead of like hitting the snooze button 20 times and then getting up and going and, oh my God, I'm already running crazy, right? So that little 5 minutes in the morning is what allowed me to be okay and to be in a good enough place that then the ideas came for how to make all this bigger stuff happen. But if all we focus is on the big stuff and we're not looking at what can I do right now with my life, that big stuff continues to feel too overwhelming and too out there and too much, right? So our nervous system literally looks at that big picture and goes, oh, hello, that's not happening right now. We're going to stay right here where we're comfortable and where we're safe, but safe does not equal happy, right? So when we allow our nervous system to tell us all the reasons why we can't accomplish that big thing, and we therefore don't even think about what could I do today, then we never make any progress. But if we can flip that and say, hey, we're going to get there someday, but hey, nervous system, by the way, we're not getting there yet. It's okay. That's just our goal. What are we going to do today? Today, we're going to do this thing for 5 minutes, right? And that's different for everybody. That's what we help you do, figure out inside of our programs, is what that thing looks like for you. But for me, it was like that 5 minutes a piece in the morning. That little 5 minutes a piece ended up creating enough of an impact on my day-to-day life that suddenly I was able to start seeing all these potential paths that I had never been able to see before. The second baby step is literally the remembrance of what it is we're working for in the first place and who we want to be when we achieve that thing. So, for example, sorry, my phone is ringing like crazy today. A lot of us don't achieve the goals that we want to achieve because we literally forget that we're even going for things, right? This is why New Year's resolutions often fail. We literally forget that we are working towards something. So if we can somehow remind ourselves every single day of what we want to achieve, and if we can say to ourselves, who will I be? How will I act? How will I think? How will I feel? How will I behave? Once I've achieved that, and then bring a little bit of that energy into our lives today, it'll actually bring that thing into our reality faster. So the two things that we need to do on a daily basis, which are 20 times more important than the goal, not because the goal is not important, but because, we can come up with that big idea, but we have to take all the steps. I can't decide to go, on a vacation and then just not plan any of the baby steps, right? I can't decide I want to lose 40 pounds and then not do anything in the process. So the goal is important, but we have to do the daily stuff. And the two things that we have to do is we have to take the time every single day, which can be as little as 5 minutes, to say, what can I do for myself today? And we have to keep remembering, what is it that we want to get towards? What is our ultimate goal? How do we keep remembering it? How do we keep it in the front of our brain? And how do we start to feel more like that today? And when we can combine those things, then we actually start to make the progress we've been wanting to make all along. So if this is something that you are struggling with, absolutely reach out and let us know, because this is what we help with. But otherwise, I want you to ask yourself today, what are these things that I can do for myself? What is one tiny thing I can do every single day? What is one way that I can remember my goals every single day? Because those little tiny steps start to add up. And then you look back in a year and you're like, oh, holy shit, I made progress. And it's amazing. And it feels amazing. So think about that. Let me know. And of course, as always, if you want our help, let us know, because this is what we do. In the meantime, I hope you have an amazing day. I will talk to you next time.